He's the MLB Network insider, Peter Gammons, back here on the Rich Eisen Show. How are you, Peter?
Great. I always love being introduced as an Undertaker.
Don't you think? Well, you know what? I'll tell you, it's the exact opposite right now, Peter, because we saw an absurd number of trades, so hope is clearly alive in a lot of parts in the Major League Baseball world. And I said at the top of the show, I thought the Rangers did the best, and they saved the best for last, getting Lucroy, Jeffress, and Beltran. That is exactly what the team needs. And with 5.5 games up on Houston and having the opportunity for best record in the American League, which they currently have, I thought that was really a home run. Peter, what were your thoughts on that subject?
I thought so. I think the most important player that got traded at the deadline was Andrew Miller. But I do think that Texas really helped itself. And I think they came up with, especially with Lucroy handling the pitching and Jeffress at the end, and a couple of the other deals that John Daniels had made to fill out the bullpen. If Darvish and Hamels are both healthy, they can beat a Cleveland with that great starting pitcher and then the right-hander, left-hander combination at the end. But I thought it was interesting. What I find really fun here is we have the Texas Rangers, who, as the Texas Rangers and Washington Senators, have never won. We have the Washington Nationals, who, as the Montreal Expos, never actually won a World Series. And with Chicago Cubs, who did win in 1908, as we all remember. I think it's great that all these different teams are sort of in the middle of this. And Cleveland, 1948. I was looking this up yesterday because I noticed that they drew almost 30,000 a game over the weekend. And, obviously downtown Cleveland has not been, a lively place. In 1948, the last year that the Indians won the World Series, there were 914,000 people within the city limits. There are now less than 390. And it's amazing. I just wonder what that would do following LeBron for the Indians to win if they went all the way and won the World Series. So you had two champions in 1 year to a city that's lost pretty close to two-thirds of its population.
Yeah, and if the Cubs and Indians face each other in the World Series with Francona in one dugout and Theo Epstein in one front office, whoever wins would be the greatest curse lifter of all time. Correct?
I know.
Peter?
It'd be tremendous. That would be hysterical in a lot of ways. And, and then they go back. They were in first place on the last day of the season in 2011. And they ended up losing to the Orioles in Baltimore on a ball that Carl Crawford couldn't catch. And then Evan Longoria had a home run against the Yankees. The Red Sox were knocked out. Within 2 days, Francona and Epstein were both gone. Much to the delight of their new employees, employers.
I'm sure. Peter Gammons of MLB Network joining me here on the Rich Eisen Show. So you say Andrew Miller is the most important player to be traded. Is that because he's under control for 2 more years? Why would you say that out of all of the players that got dealt over the last week?
Well, I think that he and Zach Britton of the Orioles are the two best believers in the game. And to be able to have a right-hander who's a closer with 20 saves and Miller, who is the most dominant pitcher in the sport in terms of strikeouts, of striking out 40% of batters he faces, to have them, and both of them have no ego problems. So, Andrew's the type of guy. I remember a year ago when he was with the Yankees and talking to him in spring training, I said, well, they told you exactly, what the role is going to be. He said, it's not necessary. He said, I'm being paid a lot of money. When you get paid a lot of money, you do what they ask you to do. He said, you don't get paid a lot of money and then tell you what you want to do. He said, so I have no problem. I'll pitch in the 6th inning if they want me to. And that is for a guy like Francona and with the bullpen he's had, I think that means a lot, that he could take 2 closers and use them for matchups against right-handers, left-handers. He can use them as setup men. If you have a terrible 8th inning with 3 really good left-handed hitters coming up, you can use Andrew Miller in the 8th inning and go to the 9th. So it's not. I think that really means a lot, especially when they've got the best starting rotation in the American League, and they're the type of power pitchers that usually go well in October. But I mean, I love what Texas has done, and you go Darvish and Hamels healthy into every series to pitch 3 or 4 times. I mean, the Rangers are going to be really, really tough. And I also love the fact that when you've got the personalities of Carlos Beltran and a couple of those other veterans on the Rangers, you've got so much experience, so much emotion, so much fire. I have known many people that I would rather have on my side in baseball than Adrian Beltre. Well, I have Beltre and Beltran on the same team, and Beltran is not as fiery as Beltre, but they're both tremendous teammates and unbelievably intelligent players.
And I like I said, I agree with you about the Rangers, and yet the Indians might have won the day, if you will, the trade deadline day or week had Lucroy gone to them and not the Rangers. And I'm wondering if maybe when it comes down to who makes the World Series, that could have been the moment that switched it all around. Why did Lucroy not want to go to Cleveland? Was it just something as simple as he had the hammer of a no-trade clause and wanted to exact the leverage that he had? Why did he not want to go?
He does have one. His agent locked him into a long-term deal in which over the term of the contract he makes less money that Matt Garza makes per annum. I mean, it's one of the worst contracts in modern baseball history. And I think this was one way to sort of go to Texas, maybe get it extended. But, the Indians were faced, he demanded to know how much playing time he's going to have. Well, obviously, they think that the kid catcher, Mejia, who's 21 years, is the best player in their farm system. They're not giving up the best player in their farm system, who's 21 years old, and they're going to basically have it under control for a decade. And then sit Jonathan Lucroy on the bench behind Yan Gomes. But that's neither here nor there. And he exercised the right, and we don't know yet whether or not Texas made promises. They may or may not, but we'll see and see what happens. It was a disappointment, but I do know this, that the Indians would have been more disappointed if the same thing had happened with Miller.
Now, the Yankees, very rarely do you call a team that just sold off all these players a winner. And Peter, I said I felt kind of like during the NBA draft, hearing all of these players from Slovakia or Estonia I've never really heard of, and I'm being told I should be excited about because of the way evaluators think of them. What can you tell me about the haul that the Yankees got for Miller, for Beltran, for Chapman over the last week?
Well, they did really well, and the Indians people and the Cubs people were really just effusive in their praise and respect for Brian Cashman and how he did business. He got a lot. The kid shortstop from the Cubs will probably end up playing third base. In the Cubs' estimation, might be a 40 home run guy playing third base in Yankee Stadium because he's got tremendous right center field power. And I mean, they got Frazier is a great kid. The kid they got from Cleveland, big time power. I think he's only 21, 22 years old now. Having met him and gotten to know him a little bit, he's got that person. He'll be very big in New York. People will love him there. And you just start out. You have to have X amount of good young players. In living in Boston, last year the Red Sox were forever being they should trade whatever Philadelphia wants for Cole Hamels. Well, if they had done that, they would be in fourth place with no chance of competing for third because the players had to be Mookie Betts, Jackie Bradley Jr., and Blake Swihart. So they would have done that and then had Hamels at $150 million, and they wouldn't have signed David Price. So instead they have David Price and two 23-year-old guys who started the All-Star game.
Well, and that's another reason why you don't trade for Chris Sale with some of those guys that I guess was rumored, right? How close was it to have Chris Sale? I got the impression that it was not close at all. Matter of fact, David Dabrowski said that essentially they didn't talk after Friday. So he had said
to people that he was not going to trade Benintendi. He's not going to trade Moncada. And he's not going to trade a young pitcher in A-ball. And that was going to be it. He traded away one really good young pitcher to San Diego, but he wasn't going to do another one. And he held tight to it. And, for the Red Sox to have a real chance, it's not that complicated. David Price finished last year 11-1 down the stretch. He has to pitch like that again. And Kimbrel has to be healthy and pitch really well. He threw the ball very well last night. And they have to have Porcello and Wright keep going the way they've gone this year. If that happens, they have a chance. Because Toronto's very good, but taking Sanchez out of the rotation is going to hurt them. And Baltimore just plays his heart out. They absolutely astound me. But they're really good. Buck Showalter handles the bullpen as well as any manager I've ever watched. And, in Britain, I think they have the best reliever.
Yeah, and then you've got, Liriano going to the Blue Jays as well, Upton, Scott Feldman. So the Jays went ahead and acquired some people in the trade deadline, too. And when you say that's not complicated with the Red Sox, let's get to something that is complicated, and that's Yasiel Puig. What in the world can you tell me about this situation with him and the Dodgers and how you think it might all play out, Peter?
I think if he gets off to a good start in Oklahoma City, I think that they'll eventually trade him. I spent a lot of time with Dave Roberts and George Lombard in spring training, observing how they worked with him. George's wife is actually Cuban and speaks fluent Spanish, and had a tremendous rapport with him. But the question is, does he have any baseball instincts? And I think that's what I'm sure a lot of Dodger fans ask that question. I think it's really a serious issue. Is he just doesn't get it? I mean, he doesn't get it when he doesn't hit a cutoff man. The way he runs the bases, it's a shame. I think he's a terrific guy. I really like him personally, but I think that just those 3 weeks of fame may have just melted away this necessity to go out in the field and do it time after time after time. Maybe he'll go to AAA and devote himself to making it back. Maybe he won't. Yeah,
I mean, that's the question. Yasiel Puig in Oklahoma City, when you say that instincts aren't there baseball-wise, the instinct would be that, okay, I've hit a little bit of rock bottom here going to AAA, and I now need to pull myself out of this, as opposed to the other way around, Peter. I mean, that's the concern, wouldn't you say, right now?
Absolutely. And he has to find people on whom he can rely and listen to them. So, hopefully it will happen. As I say, I think he's a terrific guy. But he just doesn't always common sense does not really come with the package. Mm-hmm. And hopefully it will happen. But he shot through the minor leagues in no time. And went really from tryouts in Mexico right through to the big leagues in a matter of 2 months. So now we'll see exactly who and what he is. I'm hopeful. I mean, I remember in spring training, he and George Lombard, Dave Roberts, and a couple of the other coaches went out to dinner, and he kept saying to George, I want to be a Gold Glove outfielder. I want to prove I can really defend. And at times he was very good, but at other times he'd drift, he'd be out of position, he'd overthrow cutoff men. Mm-hmm. It's just I don't know if the attention span's there or he just hasn't played enough legitimate baseball. Now, a couple of people have said to me, one of the best ways with the young Cuban players is get them when they're teenagers and let them really learn the game here. Because they don't play every day in Cuba. Mm-hmm. And they have a lot of fun, but the game's a little bit wild. And so it may be that now that he goes down to the minor leagues and knows that he has to crawl back, that somehow it works.
Peter, thanks for the time. As always, I could chat with you for days. Truly. I really cherish when you call in, and I look forward to the next time already.
I do too, Rich. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Peter. Appreciate that. That's at PGammo on Twitter.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.